So have you guys heard the leaks about God of War? Because they're pretty interesting. So we are going on a bit of a dry spell when it comes to God of War, and there's been rumors over the last little while that a new God of War game is coming, but it's not going to be the same as the last two or Ragnarok or anything like that. The rumor is that its setting is going to be in Egypt, and just like this image in and of itself is pretty damn cool, I must say. But this is the information. Sony Santa Monica is working on more God of War based off of job listings. The leaker Tom Henderson claims Kratos will wield an Egyptian sword in the next game. Christopher Judge, who is the voice of our man here, Kratos, says he hopes that the next game takes place in Egypt. It could launch after Corey's next game. My game? But we have a video here. From someone by the name of Captain Kuba. I was sent this one on Twitter. And it says, the problem with God of War Egypt that no one talks about. Locked me right in.
You want to know a fun God of War fact that will totally not make you depressed? If PlayStation doesn't announce a new God of War game by February 2026...
I would assume, by the way, that we're probably going to be getting a state of play pretty soon.
This would have been the longest stretch of time that God of War fans have had to wait for a new game announcement. I want you to think about that for a second. The time we've had to wait to get a new game announcement since God of War Ragnarok release is almost as long as the time we had to wait in between the release of God of War Ascension and the announcement of God of War 2018.
That's actually insane.
Santa Monica
have abandoned me.
I wanted to start this video with this interesting fact, not only because, well, I'm a little bit salty at the lack of God of War announcement at the Game Awards, but also because I wanted to show you that I've had a lot of time to think about this next big God of War game. Not the rumored Metroidvania or the rumored God of War 1 remake, but the next mainline God of War game.
Dude, the amount of remake rumors that are going around lately, and it all started after Oblivion. Because I don't know if you guys know, Oblivion sold insanely well. Especially on Steam. It's like after that, it was like every studio is now making all of their remakes. So apparently the God of War trilogy is going to all be getting remakes, the original one. So I don't know.
The one that almost every God of War fan believes will take place in Egypt. In regards to this assumption, I understand that some fans want Santa Monica to subvert our expectations by taking Kratos to an entirely different pantheon. But I think it's pretty safe to say that the next big God of War game will take place in Egypt. It's honestly the pantheon that fans have wanted to see the most since the ending of God of War 3. There's been multiple hints about the pantheon throughout this series. And Santa Monica...
There's one that's like massive. It literally shows Kratos wearing armor from Egypt with wolves from Egypt. It's like a stone carving in one of the walls. So people are thinking that basically the next game might actually be a prequel to the other two and take place in Egypt.
Already almost made this game back in 2018. In my humble opinion, God of War Egypt is almost guaranteed to be the next pantheon in the series. The real mystery is, how is Santa Monica going to get Kratos there after the events of God of War Ragnarok? The most popular theory in regards to this question is that Atreus will get captured by another pantheon and Kratos will have no choice but to go and rescue him. But I think this idea ultimately betrays the whole story God of War Ragnarok was trying to tell. Atreus, whether you like it or not, is by himself now. It is now time for his story to begin. And that can't happen if Daddy's always around. I think a better reason to get Kratos inside of Egypt is if he takes Tyr's role in the story. Tyr in the God of War universe wasn't only the God of War of the Norse lands, he also undertook the great responsibility of unification. Not just within the borders of the Norse realm, but also unification with other pantheons. But Tyr, as I'm sure you know, is no longer the God of War of the Norse realms. That responsibility has fallen to another god, Kratos. So, could Kratos now take his role of unifying not just the Norse realms, but also all of the pantheons? Tyr certainly seems to think something along those lines.
The days I could hope to unify these realms are long past. But they see you as the hero of Ragnarok. You are known, respected. And from what I have seen, you're the most qualified by far.
Maybe what will get Kratos...
I love that. So... I have now heard two perspectives to how this Egypt game could work. Number one is that it's a prequel. Number two, so in other words, Atreus, because he was just saying like, how would Atreus get there? He wouldn't be involved because it's a prequel. Number 2 is now this.
Inside of Egypt is an attempt at making peace with another pantheon. This will be followed, of course, by one of the Egyptian gods disapproving of this move. So this Egyptian god will most likely devise a plan to turn all of the Egyptian gods against Kratos, and boom, there you have it, God of War Egypt begins. But similar to the theory of Atreus getting captured by another pantheon, I'm not entirely sure this story will feel natural to the development of Kratos as a character. Sure, he has grown quite a bit, but I think it's too much for him to suddenly be making a trip to another pantheon and ask for unification. Kratos right now isn't in a position to start a war with another pantheon, but I also don't think he's in any position to become a hippie god that just wants to chill with other pantheons. So what could be the reason for taking Kratos into Egypt then?
The hippie
We'll
god.
probably never guess what the writers have come up with until we actually play the game. But recently, I've started to think about this question from a different angle. What if the reason we can't come up with a way for Kratos to leave the Norse realms is because there isn't one? God of War Ragnarok clearly gives a reason for Atreus to be the one who's leaving, but not for Kratos. In fact, a big part of the story of God of War Valhalla is him coming to accept the role as one of the protectors of the realm. It would honestly be weird for Santa Monica to completely bypass this new chapter in his life by taking him out of the Norse realms.
I believe
That is a good point.
I would like to sit here for a while.
On top of that, we also know that Santa Monica has left many unanswered questions from the Norse saga, like the mystery of who blew the horn, Sindri's turn to the dark side, the possibility that Forseti is still alive.
His father murdered Heimdall. Forseti has proof. Take him.
No.
And lastly, the weird situation with Hell's next ruler. I think we can all agree that if Santa Monica tries to answer any of these Norse-centric mysteries in another pantheon, those answers would not be very fulfilling. We also have the issue of the new weapons Kratos has acquired. Usually when you start a new saga, it's best to start off fresh from a gameplay perspective. This is why Cory Barlog didn't want Kratos to have the Blades of Chaos from the start of God of War 2018. He wanted players to get accustomed to the Leviathan Axe and the new gameplay formula. So if we follow the same logic, Kratos will probably have a new weapon in the Egyptian saga. But there's an issue
Which goes with the Tom Henderson leaks that we talked about before.
here that not many have realized. When Kratos made the jump from the Greek realm to the Norse realm, Santa Monica only had to bring with him one weapon, the Blades of Chaos. But now with the jump to the Egyptian saga, Santa Monica not only has to make this jump with the Blades of Chaos, but also with the Leviathan Axe and the Draupnir Spear. An argument can be made that the Draupnir Spear isn't that important, even though it was made with his own blood and was blessed by Brock in one of the most emotional moments in the story. But who knows, maybe Santa Monica will be able to do away with the Draupnir Spear. But I really don't know how they'll justify leaving the Leviathan Axe behind. This isn't just a cool axe with ice powers.
Again, can I just say it? The only thing that would answer all of these questions is if it's a prequel, right? Then you don't have to bring any of these. You can just have the whatever the new weapons that Tom Henderson was talking about, the Egyptian sword, as well, right? What Andrew said, does it actually go Egypt, Greece, Rome, Norse, like storyline wise? That would answer the questions, right?
This is Kratos' late wife's weapon that may or may not contain part of her soul. Much like the Blades of Chaos, the Leviathan Axe is very important to Kratos as a character. This means that Kratos will have to make the jump to the Egyptian realm with 2 weapon slots already filled.
Or the other problem with that is then why do we not have the Egypt sword in the future game? That is a good problem too. That's a good point.
This leaves room for maybe one more weapon, but no more. And can you really imagine a new God of War saga with only one new weapon? When we're being completely honest with ourselves, there isn't anything in the story of God of War Ragnarok that hints at Kratos traveling anywhere. So once again I ask, how are they going to get Kratos inside of Egypt? Clearly, it's very difficult for Santa Monica to make the Egyptian saga a continuation of the Norse saga. So what if it isn't then? What if God of War Egypt is actually a prequel story?
Did you have everything before the game of like how long this is after the last God of War journey we've seen? Like how much older
How
Kratos
long
is?
is this after the last game?
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Anyway.
We've been pretty specific throughout all the development of God of War to not commit to a date or any time
Smart move.
periods. Chronologically, it fits beforehand, but it is way more interesting to look back on that when you find out her power and control. If you find out who she is and you find all that information first, this story doesn't work as well, right? This reveal and this sort of bonding between these two characters. But now, looking back on how he got there, that to me is far more interesting because now you feel like
This is how good writers talk. Let me just say that.
Totally understand everything, but you don't.
If Santa Monica decides to make the Egyptian game a prequel story about Kratos, then they completely bypass all of the problems they would have with a sequel. They would no longer have to worry about all the mysteries they left unanswered because, chronologically speaking, they don't exist yet. They also wouldn't have to come up with an ad hoc justification for why he no longer has the Leviathan Axe or the Draupnir Spear, because at this point in his life, he didn't have these weapons yet. And lastly, Santa Monica wouldn't have to come up with a creative way of getting Kratos out of the Norse realms because he isn't there yet. In fact, if God of War Egypt is set after the events of God of War 3, it would make perfect sense because this is when Kratos is aimlessly wandering the earth. It's the time in his life where he would naturally come across other pantheons, like he already did with the Egyptian one. Cory Barlog has said before that everything we've seen is a misdirection. So what if the true purpose of the random release of the God of War Fallen God comics was to set up the Egyptian game? They certainly couldn't make a God of War game from the story the Fallen God comics told, because in this story Kratos is just constantly passing out and killing nothing throughout most of the comics. However, by the end, we can see the potential for a game because at the very least Kratos has now accepted the curse of the Blades of Chaos, which means he at least has one weapon for traditional combat. And I know the story of the Fallen God comics ends with Kratos leaving the Egyptian pantheon behind, but again, as Cory Barlog has said before, everything is a misdirection. What might have seemed like Kratos exiting the Egyptian realm could very well be the beginning of his journey there. It's not like Kratos peacefully passed through the Egyptian realm.
What he's saying here is the right answer.
Killed two of their creatures in bloody combat. Who's to say that some Egyptian gods won't want retributions for his actions? So instead of Atreus being the one captured by another pantheon, what if it's Kratos? And this is what begins his journey there. From a character perspective, it would also make sense for Santa Monica to focus on this time period because it could offer us a look at a completely different Kratos. So far we've seen the raging monster and the calm and reasonable god. But what exactly happened to Kratos in between these two stages of his life? This is something that a prequel story could explore with ease. And as it turns out, Cory Barlog also seems to think this would be a good idea.
For me, I wanted an expanse of time from 3 to explore the rock bottom of Kratos, right? So that what happened...
Dude. That would be a damn good... Right?
Happened before this is a really cool
super
story, something
dark
that I've sort of laid the beats out for, but something we're not really talking about today. Sure. So that when you kind of see that story as it folds into him arriving in Scandinavia and meeting Faye, all of that is a really awesome story.
I know that most God of War fans are not excited about a prequel story. They naturally want to see what's next for Kratos. But if we're being completely honest, there is a sense of finality to Kratos' arc.
Okay, side note, have you guys watched Fallout the season 2? Because this is like a quick side note. The way that they do storytelling in that is so freaking good. I plan on making a video on it on YouTube, like on Ink Slasher. But timeline wise, season 2 takes place at the beginning and end of the timeline. Because of that, they're constantly pushing the story of Fallout forward, but also answering questions from the past as well. It is so well told. Anyway.
With God of War Valhalla, at least a temporary sense of finality. If you ask me, I think the most natural story to tell after the events of God of War Valhalla is what I'm calling the War of the Pantheon saga. So far, we've been laser focused on Kratos' growth as a character, but Santa Monica has not yet explored what other mythologies think of a god that, from their perspective, goes around destroying pantheons. I'm willing to bet that after Odin and the rule of the Aesir collapsed, they began to get really worried about Kratos. So naturally, they would temporarily put aside their differences and team up with the purpose of taking down the Pantheon Destroyer himself. And this siege on the Norse realm would make even more sense if Kratos has interacted with these pantheons in the past, which would have been this time period that Cory Barlog wants to explore in Kratos' life. What if the next God of War saga isn't the Egyptian one, but instead it's the saga where Kratos pisses off every pantheon? This would make perfect sense because this is a time period in Kratos' life where he isn't the
I'm pretty sure this guy's working as a writer on God of War.
Monster he once was, but he also isn't the peaceful god he has become. Which means he probably killed a few of their deities before exiting their realm. Naturally, these pantheons would want to unite after hearing that Kratos toppled yet another pantheon, so they would march towards Midgard with the goal of putting down the one they feared the most. And in this story, Kratos would be placed in a position where he would have no other option but to kill a few gods to protect his people. Which is honestly the only way I see Kratos killing another god after everything he said in God of War Ragnarok.
No more. No more.
He's right. This is the end of that saga, unless they do something crazy. But like,
For the sake of our children, we must be better.
I know most people don't necessarily get hyped up about prequel stories, most want to see what happens next. But I really think in the case of God of War, it's very important for Santa Monica to explore the past before continuing Kratos' story. By doing so, they put on hold all of the mysteries left over from the Norse saga, while also exploring an unknown time period in Kratos' life. But hey, if you think God of War Egypt could work as a sequel instead of a prequel, I really want to know what your take is. So if you think it can do better, write in the comments section a story premise that you think can get Kratos inside of Egypt after the events of God of War Valhalla. The only rule is, Atreus cannot be captured, which will cause Kratos to go and rescue him. I've heard that theory many times before.
yeah, this is a very well put video because I agree with everything that he said. And from the beginning, I'm pretty sure this gets to be like a prequel to it. And I think they could do a pretty cool thing with them, like he said, Kratos hitting rock bottom, him not being kind of like the moral figure that we see in the current game. I think that would be really, really cool and probably the best thing that they could do. Because I don't know where they get. He's right. I don't know how you bring him out of retirement, if you will, after the end of the last game. But yeah, I think that could be absolutely dope. And I love Egypt as a setting for games. So I think it's a pretty solid guess. Now, as we mentioned, February, we're probably going to get a state of play. Do we see it then? It could be the last, but wait, there's more moment in that. I could definitely see that happening.